Welcome to Introduction to Teaching Online. In this video series, we will discuss online learning environments and the differences you'll encounter when teaching in an online setting versus the traditional face-to-face classroom. This is an introductory video series, so we'll cover the basics of teaching online with a hands-on approach of how to address the various challenges you may encounter in online instruction. Please note, this video series has 3 parts. Part 1, which you are currently watching, will cover the online classroom and the needs of the online student. Part 2 will cover the 3 components of a successful online course. And Part 3 will highlight features in Canvas which can address the challenges of online learning. It is recommended that you watch all parts of this video series to ensure a comprehensive overview of online teaching. By the end of this video, you should be able to successfully identify the challenges of online instruction, recognize the unique needs of your online students, and explain strategies to address the needs of your online students. Let's start broad by spending a minute discussing exactly what the online learning environment is like. The first point I'd like to make may sound like an obvious statement, but it's important. The online classroom is not a direct equivalent to a traditional classroom. Therefore, do not treat it as one. Your courses should not be transposed as is to the online setting, because course design and activities that worked effectively in person may not work online without adjustment. Rather, bringing your course online is an opportunity to re-evaluate its content and design. Look at each and every activity, project, quiz, or other assignment in the course and ask yourself if it can be translated to the online setting and if the key elements driving its success are still present online. For example, imagine you're an instructor teaching a creative writing class, and in the in-person session, you do a round-robin writing exercise where students each have 2 minutes to write a contribution to a fictional story relating to a certain theme. In the classroom, students have a piece of paper, an instructor timing each 2-minute interval, and the students passing the paper around the table to each group member. The key element driving this activity is the synchronicity of it. The students are sitting together, the instructor is timing it, and the students are completing the activity all at once. Now, imagine that activity in an online class via a discussion board. You post a theme and form students into groups with set time slots so each member knows when it's their turn to write. You ask them to use a discussion forum to each post their contribution and to time themselves when writing the post. One student responds Sunday. The next responds on Tuesday with a lengthy contribution that clearly took more than 2 minutes to write. And then group member 3 forgets about the assignment, so members 4 and 5 do not respond. Therefore, this activity that was a success every semester in person was not such a success online. However, the activity did not fail just because it's happening online. It failed because the instructor didn't effectively translate it into the online setting and utilize tools of their learning management system that would make it more effective. Our lesson here is to, number 1, rethink, do not just transpose course activities from an in-person class, and number 2, the success of your online class in part relies on your ability to utilize your learning management system to its greatest potential. An online class is an opportunity to capitalize on the features your LMS offers and provide your students with an engaging online learning experience. Your course content should not just be the materials students read as homework for a face-to-face course. It also needs to structure and support student activities and interactions. Now that we know that course content and activities have specific requirements and affordances in an online setting, the next question is, what do online students specifically need and how, as instructors, can we address them? In order to address this question, let's review some of the most common needs of the online student. First, You'll want to provide plenty of technical guidance for your non-tech savvy students. Remember, the students enrolled in your online class are not necessarily tech gurus, and their enrollment in an online class does not guarantee they will even know how to navigate an online course. Therefore, best practice is to have a Getting Started page or module where you supply students with all technical documentation and tutorials they may need to successfully navigate your course. Assume they know nothing and supply links to all systems or software they'll be using. This includes tutorials for the learning management system the course resides on, special software you require them to use, e-textbook support if the course textbook resides online, and more. This not only helps them, but it helps you as well, giving you somewhere to point your students to if they email you directly with technical questions. Be sure to provide contact information for the help desk. It's a good guideline to try to provide enough information that your students will not need to email you with any questions as they enter the course. This is especially so because some students feel uncomfortable reaching out with questions to someone they've never met or seen. Take a look at this course homepage and imagine you are a new online student and this is the first class you've taken in 2 decades. You log on, ready to get started, and think to yourself, where do I begin? In this course, the student is left to their own devices to try to figure out where course content resides. Now look at this course homepage. The homepage has a very prominent welcome message with a link to the modules page, where the students can find the Getting Started and Course Essentials modules. Whereas the student in the first course may have emailed you asking where to find course content, the student in the second course was given clear direction on how to navigate the course. Again, assume your students know nothing. A savvy online student can gloss over this material if they need to, so don't think of it as clutter. Rather, think of it as a necessity for those who need it. The second need of your online students is frequent communication. You'll notice that communication is woven into many of the 5 needs of an online student because it is what can potentially lack the most in an online course. In an online class, it's easy for students to become a face in the crowd and feel that they've received no individualized attention. Communication can alleviate that isolation. You should email your students as a group once per week at minimum. Discuss the content of the upcoming module and its importance. However, do it in a way that differs from how you introduce it in the course itself. Your emails should be personalized with your own voice and not boilerplate. It's also a good idea to add personal touches to these emails. For example, you might comment on specific discussion posts and encourage students by name. You could say that Jesse made an excellent point about global warming, or I particularly enjoyed the discussion Tom started by sharing his personal experience on this topic. Varying the names you highlight each week will help all your students feel connected to you and to each other. Let's look at this announcement welcoming students to Module 2. The instructor seems to do all the right things, discusses the week's material and why it's relevant. However, this announcement could be copied and pasted to an entirely different section of the course. It lacks personalization and any grounding in the details of the class discussions. Now, look at this announcement. It more closely replicates an in-person conversation. The professor acknowledges individual students and specific points that need clarity based on submitted assignments. Remember, as an online instructor, you take more of a back seat than you would in an in-person course. In person, you are at the front of the room, leading, lecturing, instructing. Online, you are only as present as you make yourself. To be a present instructor and not a vague or absent figure, communicate with your students frequently and make sure they are aware of your presence. The third need of your online students is direction. In an online class, students aren't seeing you in person once or twice a week, so the housekeeping items you may mention in class, such as an upcoming exam or a reminder that a paper is due in 3 weeks, is absent online unless you take time to make it available. There are many different avenues you can take to make the information available. A popular one is a clear weekly introduction to that week or module's content. This can be done via a content page in the course itself or an email announcement. Discuss the content for that week, its relevance and tie-in to the course itself, and mention any important due dates that are coming up. You might include a table or list of each week's activities, their due date, and any obligations your students have for the course that particular week. Remember, online learning is largely self-paced, so it's up to the instructor to be as transparent as possible regarding what's expected each week and when everything is due. Students cannot manage their time well if your course lacks this transparency. The module layout you see here lists the module content but lacks any sort of introduction to the module or overview of what's expected and what's due that week. Students would need to click through each and every item to identify due dates and the workload. They would have to spend extra time figuring out how to manage their time, which is not ideal. As instructors, we should help them with this step. In this version, you'll see there's an introductory content page for the module. When students click on it, they're presented with the context for this week's content, why it's important, and how it ties into the course. There is also a list of learning objectives, which we'll discuss in part 2 of this video series, and a table detailing what's coming up this week and when it is due. Students can come to this page for a snapshot of the week and not have to sift through assignment and content pages to figure out what is happening. In addition to directions for navigating and managing modules, guidelines should be provided for assignments in the course. Rubrics are particularly helpful in an online class and help your students understand exactly what you are looking for when grading their assignments. This is information that you would typically dictate to them in a face-to-face class, but could easily get lost online. Also, robust assignment pages with detailed instructions help students understand the steps to complete a particular assignment. Include a step-by-step list, and if the project spans multiple modules, include not only the due dates, but which module that due date falls within. Take a look at this discussion prompt. Students are given a prompt with the topic, but no true guidance regarding how much to write or what's expected of them. This could lead to a very wide variety of responses. Some students will write 2 sentences, and other students may write 2 pages because an expectation wasn't set. Now look at this discussion prompt. It indicates a range of 200 to 300 words for the word count. Now students know the minimum and maximum expectation for the length of their post. Also, the instructions say to include a direct quote, so students know what they are required to include content-wise to receive full credit. Finally, specific prompts are included to help students get started with their analysis. The bottom line here is transparency. Provide direction to your students each week on what to expect content-wise, what due dates are coming up, and how they should be completing each assignment to satisfy all requirements. Don't make them guess or wonder what to do for full credit. The 4th need of your online students is robust, frequent, and timely feedback. This continues to tie into the need for robust communication. When providing feedback on assignments, be sure to include an explanation of your reasoning for the grades. Do not just provide the grade itself. In-depth feedback can be accomplished via a completed rubric with comments or simply robust written or recorded feedback. Remember, nothing except your remarks will serve as feedback to the student. So it is extremely important that the feedback you provide be detailed and descriptive. Since this feedback will guide students in responding to future assignments, you should also be as expeditious as possible with your feedback and grading of assignments. Imagine you are a student in an online class and you received this grade. Congratulations, you received full credit. That's great, but with absolutely no context as to what warranted it, how can you repeat or carry forward this performance in another assignment? Now, take a look at this grade. Instead of just writing something vague, such as good job, the instructor wrote specific responses to key elements of the assignment and supplied additional detail via a video comment. This helps the student feel a sense of connection to the instructor and adds a personalized touch that is often missing in online courses. It's understandable that in a large online class, you may not necessarily have time to record a video for each and every student, but even a few written sentences can go a long way to steering students in the right direction. Additionally, online students need active learning and interaction with fellow students. Online education can be a very isolated, lonely environment. It is up to the instructor to design individualized opportunities for student contact and engagement. This can occur via both synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. Let's discuss each for a minute. Synchronous learning in an online classroom is when the students and instructor are simultaneously present virtually, whether it be in a text-based chat, conference call, or webinar. These are, of course, the most difficult to coordinate because everyone in an online class has different availability, but they can also be rewarding for the students. These opportunities are the closest your students can come in an online class to interacting with you and their peers in the same way they would in a face-to-face setting. Whether it be virtual office hours, optional webinars to supplement course content, or collaborative group chat, synchronous learning can address the disconnect some students feel in an online classroom. Asynchronous learning opportunities in the online classroom can also help bring your students together. Though student interaction is not occurring simultaneously in asynchronous learning, opportunities to interact can still help bridge the communication gap in an online classroom. The benefit of asynchronous learning is that you do not need to coordinate bringing everyone together at the same time, yet quality communication can still take place. This can be done through discussion forums, group spaces, and collaborations. We'll discuss some tools for such activities in Part 3 of this video series. That concludes Part 1 of the Introduction to Teaching Online video series. Hopefully, you now have a better understanding of the online classroom and the needs of online students. I would suggest continuing to watch Part 2 and Part 3 in this series. Part 2 will cover the 3 components of a successful online course, and Part 3 will highlight features in Canvas, which can address the challenges of online learning. Thank you for watching this tutorial.